I'm now going to record the last shiur before Pesach break, seeing that we've gotten to the end of the Masechta, but we needed to catch up a few dapim which we missed earlier in the year. I'm now going to do the piece from Daf Tet Amud Bet at the bottom up to where we continued, just to finish that piece. Today, okay. So Tet Amud Bet at the bottom. And with this piece, and together with another piece that we'll do today at 11:30 by Zoom, we will have finished the Masechta. Tet Amud Bet at the bottom, Mishnah. Ein bein Shiloh liYerushalayim. There was a Mishkan that stood in Shiloh for 369 years. After Shiloh was destroyed, there was a 57-year period where there was no Mishkan, and then Shlomo Melech built the Beis HaMikdash. So the Mishnah says, Ein bein Shiloh liYerushalayim. What's the difference when the Mishkan stood in Shiloh or when the Beis HaMikdash was in Yerushalayim? Ella rather, Shebeshilo, when the Mishkan stood in Shiloh, Ochlin Kodashim Kalim, you could eat lower grade korbanot, umaser sheni or maser sheni b'chol haroah. As long as you're within sight of Mishkan Shiloh, you were able to eat kachim kalim and maser sheni. The boundaries of eating kachim kalim and maser sheni were as far as you can see the Mishkan. Ubi Yerushalayim lifnim menachoma. But when the Mikdash was built in Yerushalayim, then you could only eat kachim kalim, lower grade kodashim and maser sheni within the walls of Yerushalayim. V'kan. But whether it's Shiloh or Yerushalayim, Kodesh Kodashim, the upper levels of korbanot like a chatat, an asham, a mincha, nechol lefnim and akloim, had to be eaten within the boundaries of the Mishkan Shiloh. There was a curtain around the courtyard of Mishkan Shiloh, or there were walls around the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash. The Mishnah says, Kedushas Shiloh yesh acharei heter. When Shiloh was sanctified, when Mishkan was standing in Shiloh, you could not bring korbanot on a private altar. You had to bring it to Mishkan Shiloh. But after Mishkan Shiloh was destroyed, you were allowed, for the next 57 years, you were able to bring korbanot on a private altar. But Kedushas Yerushalayim ein acharei heter. Once Yerushalayim was sanctified and the Beis HaMikdash was built, even though the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, it never became allowed again to bring korbanot on private altars. Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said, Shamati, I heard, Shemakriven bebeit Chanyo, that you're allowed to bring korbanot in a place called Beit Chanyo, which is a place that Chanyo established in Egypt, so you're allowed to bring korbanot there. Bizman hazeh, in our time, after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, you can bring korbanot in Beit Chanyo in Egypt. Ksavar, Rabbi Yitzchak held, Beit Chanyo lav Beit Avodah Zarah. The first thing is that Beit Chanyo is not a place of Avodah Zarah. If it would be a place of idol worship, you could not bring korbanot there. But this is very important because Savar Kedusha Rishona. But he holds that the first Kedusha that was placed upon the Mikdash and Jerusalem when Shlomo built the Beis HaMikdash, Kitsha L'Shata, was sanctified for its time as long as the Mikdash stood. But V'lo Kitsha L'Atid Lavo. But after it was destroyed, it was not holy for the future. So if the Kedusha of the Mikdash and Yerushalayim was not holy for the future, once it was destroyed, you can bring korbanot in other places, even in Beit Chanyo in Egypt. Because the Kedusha of Yerushalayim was nullified, was lost when it was destroyed. Dichtiv, because it's written, Ki loy votem ad ota el amnucha v'lanachla. The Torah says in Parshat Re'eh that you can bring korbanot on private altars. Why can you bring korbanot on private altars? Because you have not yet gotten to the resting place and to your heritage. If you'll be at your resting place and heritage, then no more private altars. But if you haven't arrived at your resting place and heritage, you can bring korbanot on a private altar. Menucha zu Shiloh, v'nachla zu Yerushalayim. Your resting place is referring to the Mishkan and Shiloh, and your heritage is Jerusalem. So Rabbi Yitzchak says, Makish, we're going to compare Nachla, the resting place of Shiloh, le Menucha, to the heritage, Makish Nachla, we're going to compare the heritage of Yerushalayim, le Menucha, to the resting place of Shiloh. Ma, just like Menucha, yesh achrei heter, just like the resting place of Shiloh, once it was destroyed, it became mutar, it became allowed to bring korbanot on private altars after Shiloh was destroyed. So Afnachla, even the heritage of Jerusalem, has the same law. Yesh achrei heter, after Jerusalem was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar in the first temple, you were able to again bring korbanot wherever you want. So that's Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion. Rabbi Yitzchak holds that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim, once Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Mikdash and Yerushalayim, the Kedusha is gone and you can bring korbanos wherever you want. Amrulei, so the Talmidim said to Rabbi Yitzchak, Amarta, you said that? Amarlu, he denied it and he said, Lo, no. Now I'm going to have to explain at the end of this topic why he denied it when he actually did say it. Amar Rava, Rava says, Ha Elokim, I swear by God. Amara, Rabbi Yitzchak said it. V'gomir no lominei, and I learned it from him. I heard him say that after Jerusalem was destroyed, you can bring korbanot on private altars. So why did he reverse himself and he changed his mind and no longer holds of that? Because Bishum Kasha de Rav Mori, because of Rav Mori asked the question. He asked two questions actually. The motive Rav Mori responded with a question from our Mishnah, Kedushat Shiloh, the sanctity of Shiloh, Yesh Acharei Heter, after Shiloh was destroyed, afterwards it became permissible and allowable to bring korbanot on private altars. But the Mishnah says that Kedushat Yerushalayim, once Yerushalayim was sanctified by Shlomo HaMelech, Ein Acharei Heter, you never again had permission to bring a korban on a private altar. So how could Rabbi Yitzchak say that you can bring korbanot in Beit Chanya? And v'od Tanan, there's a Mishnah in Zvachim, Mishabol Yerushalayim, once they arrived in Jerusalem, Ne'esru habamot, the altars became prohibited, v'lo hoya lehem od heter, and it never became allowed again. You never again were able to bring a korban on a private altar. V'hi oisel lenachla, Yerushalayim is the nachla, and nachla is different. Menucha, the resting place of Shiloh, is temporary, and after Shiloh was destroyed, you can bring korbanot on private altars. But nachla is permanent. Once Yerushalayim was niskadesh, once it was sanctified, you can't bring korbanos on altars. So therefore, because of these two questions from the Mishnah and Megillah and the Mishnah and Zvachim, Rabbi Yitzchak realized that he had made a mistake, and you can't bring korbanot in Beit Chanyo in Egypt, and he changed his mind. Why he denied ever having said it, we'll get to eventually. Perhaps this idea or this question, whether the Kedusha of Yerushalayim is permanent or is it temporary, Tanoi could be a dispute of Tanoim. So we'll have to be a little bit patient. It's going to sound like a dispute between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua regarding stories, but the Gemara will explain it's not merely a dispute regarding stories, it actually has an effect in halacha. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah, Amar Rabbi Eliezer says, Shamati, I heard, Kishahayu bonen bahechal, when in the beginning of the second temple they were building this sanctuary, Osin Kloim, before they built the walls of the sanctuary, and before they built the walls of the courtyard around the Mikdash, they made curtains. They put up curtains lahechol, they put up curtains to enclose the sanctuary, uklam, and they put up curtains lazora to enclose the courtyard before they built the walls. Ella, except shebahechal bonen mibachutz, in the sanctuary the curtain was inside and the wall that was built was on the outside of the curtain. Uba'azora, and when they were building the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, bonen mibifnim, the curtains were to the outside and the wall was built on the inside. Okay, so it sounds like an interesting story. Again, Rabbi Eliezer says that when they built the second Beis HaMikdash, so they first put up curtains to enclose the area of the sanctuary, and they put up curtains to enclose the area of the courtyard of the Mikdash, and the walls, when they were building the sanctuary, the wall was outside the curtain. When they were building the courtyard of the Mikdash, the wall was inside the curtain. Rabbi Yeshua says something which seemingly doesn't connect, but the Gemara will soon connect it. Shamati, I heard Shemakrivin, I heard you're allowed to bring korbanot on a mizbeach, aval pi shem bayit, even though there's no Beit HaMikdash, but as long as you knew the place where the mizbeach had been, even though the Beit HaMikdash wasn't built, you're allowed to bring korbanot on the site. I heard that ochlin kadshe kadoshim, you were able to eat the upper grade types of korbanot, like a chatas, an asham, and a mincha, in the courtyard of the Mikdash, aval pi shem kloim, even though there were no curtains. As long as you knew the area where the courtyard of the Mikdash was, you were able to eat kadshe kadoshim there. And I heard that you can eat kachim kalim and maser sheni. I heard that you can eat lower grade kadoshim, like a shlomim or a toda or a korban pesach, or you can eat Maser Sheni, Afal Pi Shein Choma. Even though there's no wall yet surrounding Yerushalayim, as long as you know where the boundaries of Yerushalayim were, you can eat Kachim Kalim and Maser Sheni there. Why? Nesha Kedusha Rishona, because the Kedusha that Shlomo had given in the first temple remains. It was Kitchel L'Shata, it was sanctified for the time that the Mikdash stood, the Kitchel L'Sid Lavo, and it was Kodesh going forward. It was Kodesh for the future. So it seems that according to Rabbi Yeshua, the Kedusha of Yerushalayim remained permanent even after the first temple was destroyed. And that's why all the sites, all the places were Kodesh. The place of the Mizbech was still Kodesh. The place of the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash was still Kodesh. Yerushalayim was still Kodesh, and therefore you were able to sacrifice a korban, eat a korban within the correct areas because it's still Kodesh. On the other hand, Michlal, that implies the Rabbi Eliezer, who said something about putting up curtains when they were building the second temple, that you needed to put up curtains to encircle the area of the sanctuary. You needed to put up curtains immediately to encircle the area of the courtyard of the Mikdash. Savar, he held, lo kitcha lo sidlavo, that the Kedusha was not permanent. That when Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash, the Kedusha was gone. So when they came back in the second temple and they wanted to re-sanctify it, the first thing they had to do was to enclose the area of the sanctuary with curtains. They had to enclose the area of the courtyard of the Mikdash with curtains so that they could re-establish the Kedusha. So I guess that's the dispute, I think, between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says the first Kedusha remains, and therefore curtains were not necessary, and you could bring korbanot and eat korbanot even without any enclosures. But Rabbi Eliezer, who held they put up curtains, felt that they needed to enclose and re-sanctify because the Kedusha was gone. Omer le Ravina le Ravashi, so Ravina says to Ravashi Mimai, who says they're arguing? Dilma perhaps, the Kuli Alma, Tulamond, everybody holds, that the Kedusha Rishona, the first Kedusha that Shlomo gave, the Beis HaMikdash, Kitcha L'Shata, was Kodesh for its time when the Beis HaMikdash stood, the Kitcha L'Sid Lavo, and was Kodesh going forward. And everybody would hold the Kedusha remains. And if the Kedusha remains, Reb Yitzchak is wrong. And you cannot bring korbanot in Beit Chanyo because the first Kedusha of Yerushalayim remains forever, and no korbanot can be brought anywhere else. What about the story with Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua? Umar, my dishmiyale kamar. Umar, my dishmiyale kamar. Each one just repeated what he had heard. Rabbi Yeshua heard that since the original Kedusha was still in place, you can sacrifice korbanos and eat korbanos on the site because the Kedusha is still in place, and good for him. Rabbi Eliezer, on the other hand, just said, I heard that they had curtains, not because you needed to re-establish Kedusha. The Kedusha remains. I just heard that they put up curtains as they were building. The chitaim, and if you'll say koloim le Rabbi Eliezer lamali, and if you'll say, so then why, according to Rabbi Eliezer, did they put up curtains? If it wasn't for the purpose of re-sanctification, why did they put up curtains? Litzniuta ba'alma, just for privacy. Sometimes in a construction site, you see they put up a wall because they don't want everybody poking their noses in. Sometimes they make a little peephole, you should see what's going on. But for privacy, they should be able to work privately, so they put up curtains. And by the way, because the sanctuary is super kodesh, they made sure that the people who put up the walls were not able to see inside the sanctuary. That's why the curtains were inside the wall. On the other hand, the courtyard of the Mikdash is not as holy, and therefore they were able to have the curtains on the outside of the wall, and the people building the wall were able to be in the courtyard of the Mikdash. But so far we're sticking to our guns, that the Kedusha that Shlomo HaMelech gave the Beis HaMikdash was Kodesh for its time, and the Kitcha Lo Sid Lavo, and was Kodesh forever, and this idea that Rabbi Yitzchak had to sacrifice korbanot in Beit Chanyo was wrong, because Beit Chanyo was after the Beis HaMikdash was built, and even though the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, you can't bring korbanos anywhere else. So we've got a problem. So where was Rabbi Yitzchak coming from? So we know that a city that had a wall around it from the time of Yeshua ben Nun has special halachot. I mean, we know the halacha that they read the Megillah on the 15th, but there are other halachot. Halacha is when you buy a house in such a city, or a person who sells a house in a city that had a wall around it from the time of Yeshua ben Nun, the seller has 1 year to buy it back. If he doesn't buy it back from the buyer within the first year, the buyer never has to sell it back and doesn't have to give it back when Yovel comes. Another halacha is people that have tzarat, people that have a nega on their body, need to be expelled from a city that had a wall around it from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. These are some halachot. We're going to learn two braitot they're going to seem contradictory. We will straighten everything out in time. But the purpose of this last piece that we're learning is, can we perhaps find a dispute whether the original Kedusha of Israel was lost when the Churban Beis HaMikdash happened? So let's give it a try. Ella, rather, the dispute whether the first Kedusha was permanent or is only temporary, Kihani Tanoi, might depend on a dispute of Tanoim. And again, if you hear contradictions as I'm speaking, don't worry, the Gemara will pick them up and the Gemara will resolve them. The Tanya we learned in a Braita. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi says, and this is a Mishnah in Masechet Arachin, regarding houses in a city that has a wall around it from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. The Mishnah listed nine cities are listed in the Mishnah as cities that had a wall around them from the time of Yeshua ben Nun. The question is now, Lama Manu Chachamim Es Elu? Why did the Chachamim count these 9? Weren't there more than 9 cities that had a wall from the time of Yeshua ben Nun? And the answer is Shekishe'alu b'nei Hagola, when the Jews returned from the exile, when they came back from Bavel in the time of Ezra to build Bayis Sheni, Matzu et Elu, they found these cities. They didn't find the others. V'kitshum, and they sanctified them. Aha! So they re-sanctified these 9 cities. Aval harishonot, but all other walled cities that had been Kodesh in the time of the first temple, Batlu, were nullified. They lost their Kedusha, Misha Batla Haaretz, when the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, and the Kedusha of the Mikdash was lost, and the Kedusha of Yerushalayim was lost, the Kedusha of those cities was also lost. So therefore, when they came back in the beginning of the second temple, they found 9 cities and re-sanctified them, but they needed to be re-sanctified because the Kedusha was lost. Alma, so you see, Kesavar, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi holds that Kedusha Rishona, that the first Kedusha, Kitsha L'Shata, was Kodesh for its time, but Velo Kitsha Lotid Lavo, but was not Kodesh for the future. You see it was lost because when they came back in the beginning of the second temple, they had to re-sanctify. Uraminhu, now I'm going to ask you a contradiction. Now the Braita that we're about to bring is going to be a bit confusing. We're going to have to straighten it out, and then I'll show you the contradiction. Then I'll show you the dispute. Urmin, I'm going to ask you a contradiction. Here's a different Braita. Amar Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi says, again regarding those 9 cities that were listed in the Mishnah in Erechim. Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi says, V'chi elu bilvad hayu? Were there only 9 cities? V'aloi kvar nemar, doesn't it say in Parshas Devarim that there were Shishim Ir, 60 cities, Kol Chevel Argov, the whole section called Argov. Uchtiv, and it's written, all those cities, Kol Eile Orim B'tzurat Chama Gavoa. All these cities had tall, high walls. So even on the east side of the Jordan River, there were 60 walled cities in the time of Yeshua ben Nun, let alone what existed on the west side of the Jordan River. At this point, what does it sound like the Braita is saying? What do you mean there's only 9? There are many more walled cities, not just those 9. Many cities are Kodesh. And they're Kodesh because they were Kodesh. Not just 9, they're all Kodesh. That's what it sounds like the Braita is about to say. Watch now, the Braita is going to contradict itself. Elalama manu et chachamim et elu. So why did the chachamim in the Mishnah count these 9? Shekisha'olu b'nei Agola, because when the people came back from exile, matzu elu, they found these 9, v'kitshum, and sanctified them. Now, before I read the Gemara, I'll tell you what the contradiction is. The Braita's tune started like, what do you mean only 9? There are 60 holy cities on the east side of the Jordan, and who knows how many cities on the west side of the Jordan, and they're all holy. What do you mean only 9? All of them are holy. Then the Braita, in mid-sentence, contradicts itself and says, but these 9 were re-sanctified. What do you mean re-sanctified? I thought you just said they're all holy. That's the Gemara's question. Kidshum, what do you mean they were re-sanctified? Hashtahu Amri, but in the first half of the Braita you said, Lo tzricha lekadushi, that you don't have to re-sanctify them. You were protesting not only 9, they're all Kodesh. They're all Kodesh, no need to be re-sanctified. Ella, rather, the second Braita should say, not that they were re-sanctified, Matzu et Elu, these were found umanum, and they counted them. There could have been 100 walled cities, but unfortunately the destruction was so great that these were the only 9 that they found. And now the Braita continues, Velo Elu bilvad, not just these 9 are Kodesh, all the cities are Kodesh. Elakol shetalu lecha, Masoret biyodcha mi'avotecha. If you have a masoret, if you have a tradition from your ancestors on any city, that it was shemukefet choma, that it had a wall mimot Yeshua ben Nun, kol mitzvot halalu nagim bo. All these laws apply. Whether sending out somebody that has tsaras from that city, or reading the Megillah on the 15th, or a person who sells a house in that city has 1 year to buy it back, and if he doesn't, he can't. The seller can't force the buyer to sell it back, and it doesn't go back b'yovel. All these laws nogam apply. Because the first kedusha was permanent. So we have now two braitot. The first braita says that the 9 cities listed in Mishnah Erechem were re-sanctified because re-sanctification was required because the first kedusha had been nullified and cancelled and it was gone. On the other hand, the next braita says that when they came to Israel, they found 9 and they declared them Kodesh, but not that they had to be sanctified. Thank God they found them. They couldn't find the others. But whenever you shall find if archaeologists find another city and we discover that it had a wall from the time of Yeshua ben Nun, it would be Kodesh as well because they don't have to be re-sanctified. The original Kedusha remains. So now I'm asking you, the original Kedusha from the first temple remains or doesn't remain? You have two braitot. The first braita says that it did not remain, and cities have to be re-sanctified. The second braita says that it did remain, and cities don't have to be re-sanctified. They merely have to be found. So we have two views. So the Gemara asks, well, wait a minute. But each braita was said by Rabbi Shmuel. Kasha de Rabbi Shmuel de Rabbi Shmuel, but it's a contradiction to Rabbi Shmuel. In the first braita, he said that they had to re-sanctify. In the second braita, he said they didn't have to re-sanctify. The Gemara says, Trei Tanoi Aliba de Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. There are two Tanoim who quoted Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, and one of them didn't quote it right. There was a dispute between students who quoted Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. One quoted Kamsi, one quoted Kamsa. Or if you want, you could say, Ha Rabbi Lazar Bar Yossi Amora. The one that says that the Kedusha, the first Kedusha, was and remained is not Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi, it's Rabbi Lazar Bar Yossi. Perhaps you remember in the beginning of the Masechta we learned in Tanya, we learned in a Braita, Rabbi Lazar Bar Yossi Amar, Rabbi Lazar Bar Yossi says, Asher lo choma, a house which is in a city, Asher lo choma. Look how the word lo is spelled. It's spelled with a vav and with an aleph. Lo with a vav means it has. Lo with an aleph means not. Savadir kwa, what does that mean? Afal pi she'ein lo achshav, even though now lo it doesn't have, but v'haya lo kodem l'chein, but lo it had one in the time of Yeshua ben Nun, it's Kodesh, because the Kedusha Rishona, the first Kedusha, was and remains. So who holds that the first Kedusha was and remains, even though right now it doesn't have a wall? It's Reb Lazar Reb Yossi. So it could be there's no contradiction in the two braitot. The one that says that the Kedusha remained, the city merely had to be found and counted, is Reb Lazar Reb Yossi. The one that said that Kedusha was lost, and therefore the cities had to be re-sanctified, that is Rabbi Shmuel Reb Yossi. And that's where we got to, and so we finished the Masechta until the Siyum that we make on Erev Pesach. Now I want to point something out which I promised you. Why would Rabbi Yitzchak deny that he ever said that you can bring korbanot in Beit Chanyo? Look, you said it. Now you say, I apologize, I made a mistake, and that's it. Right? But why would he deny ever having said it? There are a few times in Shas that we find that somebody said something, then he went under attack, and under attack he denied he ever said it. So there's a Pnei Yeshua that explains as follows. You should know that right in the beginning, when the Gemara brought Rabbi Yitzchak says that you can bring korbanot in Beit Chanyo because the first Kedusha of Jerusalem was there for the time that it was there. But once Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Mikdash, the Kedusha was gone, and therefore Rabbi Yitzchak said you can bring korbanot in Beit Chanyo. So he took a right and a left. He took one hit from our Mishnah that says that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim is permanent and you can't bring korbanot elsewhere. And the Mishnah Zvakim says the same thing. No, so what was Rabbi Yitzchak thinking? And what the answer is, Rabbi Yitzchak heard these two braitot regarding walled cities. He heard that the first braita said that you had to be re-mekadesh those cities because the Kedusha was gone. Another braita said you didn't have to be re-mekadesh cities because the Kedusha was and remained permanent. When he heard the two braitot, I don't know why, but originally he felt that the first braita was right, And if the first Braita was right, that the walled cities in Israel had to be re-sanctified, aha, said Rabbi Yitzchak. So if the walled cities in Israel have to be re-sanctified, it means that they lost their Kedusha. No, so if they lost their Kedusha, so then Yerushalayim also lost its Kedusha. Therefore you can bring Karbanos in Beit Chanya. In the end, he realized that it can't be, because there's two Mishnayos that say that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim never lost its Kedusha. There, they're talking about the walled cities. Walled cities is not Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a walled city. But there's a Kedusha of Yerushalayim, and the Kedusha of Yerushalayim, Rabbi Yitzchak realized he made a mistake. That was never lost, and therefore the Kedusha of HaMikdash was never lost, and you cannot bring Karbanos elsewhere. I made a mistake. But the reason I made a mistake is because there was a Braita regarding walled cities all over Israel, and there is an opinion that their Kedusha was lost. So he realized that even if we say that the cities in Israel that had walls, their Kedusha was lost, that's not a proof that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim was lost. One has nothing to do with the other. The Kedusha of Yerushalayim could be permanent, but the Kedusha of the walled cities in Israel could have been lost. So now he had a source for his mistake, but a mistake it was. Whenever somebody made a mistake, but there was a source for his mistake, he often denied ever having said it, because he was afraid that somebody else might find the same source that he had found and will restate that mistake. See, if the mistake is a mistake and forget it, there's just no answer, so a person will admit, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. But if the mistake that he made was based on a source, but that source was misunderstood, he may deny ever having said it. Because he's afraid if he says, I said it, but I changed my mind, maybe somebody will say, oh, maybe he shouldn't have changed his mind. I found a source for his opinion. But the source for Rav Yitzchak's opinion was an erroneous source. Because the source of his opinion was that walled cities maybe never lost their Kedusha. Maybe walled cities lost their Kedusha. Walled cities may have lost their Kedusha and needed to be sanctified. But Yerushalayim never lost its Kedusha. He compared Yerushalayim to the walled cities and thought the same way that walled cities lost their Kedusha, Yerushalayim lost their Kedusha. Therefore he realized he made a mistake. But since that mistake has a source, because walled cities may have lost their Kedusha, therefore he denied ever having said it. Strike it from the record. Erase it from the text that I ever said it. Why? Because I don't want other people to make the same mistake that I made. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So I'm recording now. It's 10:15. Mirz Hashem at 11:30. We're going to have a Zoom shir. I mean, by the time you see this, it will have been, and that will have completed the Masechta. So now let me do a little bit of Haggada Shel Pesach with you, and Tovei Alechem Bracha for having followed along carefully. In the Haggada Shel Pesach, we were up to Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch, after Korach, after eating the sandwich of matzah and mur, we eat a Suda. Should be careful not to overeat so that you can still eat the afikoman, not to overeat. Ashkenazim have a minyan to eat eggs at the Seder. I heard from a Sfaradi that they have a minhag that the Bechor eats the egg on the kara, the egg that was designated as a zecher to the Korban Chagiga. There's a Hasidic Dvar Torah from the Ishbitzer Rebbe, the one who wrote the Sefer Mea Shiloach, why to pick an egg. Usually whenever something is born, like a cow has a calf or a tree has a fruit, so that's it. The product is its finished product. That's what it is. But when a chicken lays an egg, the egg is not really its finished product, because that egg could incubate, and that incubation can bring out another chick. So that egg is symbolic of our geula. We also, in our geula, we were like the egg that was born. We came out. But that egg that came out was not our final product. The final product was 49 days later, when we were makabel the Torah. So the ultimate product that comes out from that egg is the chick. The ultimate product that came out of Yetzias Mitzrayim was Kabbalas HaTorah. Then comes afikomen at the end of the meal. So far, perhaps, we've eaten 3 kazais of matzah. We ate 2 kazais in the beginning of the Seder, because we ate a kazais from the middle matzah, which was the lechem oni, and a kazais of the top matzah, which was one of the matzahs we used for lechem mishnah. For Korach, we had another kazais of matzah with morer to eat it the way Hillel used to eat his mitzvahs of the Seder, by eating the three of them together. And now at the end we eat a tzafon. Tzafon means hidden. We had hidden the afikomen. We hid it so that we keep the children alert or awake. We put it aside. A poor man, when he has a matzah, he doesn't eat the whole matzah. He breaks off a smaller piece to eat, and the bigger piece he puts away for later. Tzafon means put away and hidden. Some also said that since matzah is a symbol of geula, the smaller part of geula, Yetzias Mitzrayim, we've had, the larger part of the geula is hidden and yet to come. So now we eat the afikomen, we eat the matzah, and after eating, in the time of the Mikdash, after eating the Korban Pesach, or today after eating the matzah of afikomen, we don't eat anything else, so that the flavor of the Pesach, or the flavor of the matzah, should remain in your mouth. Why is that important that the flavor of the matzah should remain in your mouth? So, one of the Pirushim on Sefer HaMitzvahs L'Rab Sadia Gaon, written by Rabbi Yerucham Fishel Perlo, says, there's a Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah that in the Mikdash, when they blew shofar on Rosh Hashanah, there were two trumpets on the sides and the shofar was in the center. They all blew together, but then the chatzotzerot, the trumpet, stopped blowing and the shofar kept blowing to show that the mitzvah of Rosh Hashanah is to blow shofar. This is the mitzvah. So here too, we've had various foods at the Seder, but we finish off with the matzah or the Korban Pesach to show this is the main mitzvah. I had mentioned in passing before that there's a dispute when you're actually mekayim the mitzvah of matzah. According to the Rashbam and Rashi, you're mekayim the mitzvah of matzah here with the matzah of afikomen, because that's what used to be eaten with the Pesach, and that's where they used to be mekayim the mitzvah of matzah. According to the Rosh, you're mekayim the mitzvah of matzah with the kazaisim that you eat in the beginning of the Seder when you make a bracha al achilas matzah. Some have a minhag to eat two kazaisim, lekatchila. Lekatchila, you should eat two kazaisim. Why two kazaisim? One would be a zeicher to the matzah. One would be to be mekayim the mitzvah of matzah, and the other would be a kazais of matzah zeicher to the Pesach, which was eaten with the matzah. Again, one is the kazais of matzah, which are yaitz of the mitzvah of matzah, and the other is another kazais of matzah, which represents, or is in place of, or corresponds to the Korban Pesach that was eaten. So eat two kazaisim of matzah. Why did you pick matzah to represent the meat of the Pesach? Why not more? Because since matzah in today's time is still a biblical mitzvah, it's still a mitzvah daraisa, even though we don't have a Korban Pesach, because the Torah says, Ba'erev toichlu matzah, is that the Seder should eat matzah. So matzah to Seder is more important than the morer, therefore they chose matzah, which right now you're doing the mitzvah of matzah at the afikomen, according to the Rashbam and Rashi. And number two, since matzah is more important, let the matzah now stand in for the Pesach that we don't have. At the end of the afikomen, and again, of course, the matzah at the beginning of the Seder and the matzah at the end of the Seder should be eaten while you are reclining. Since it is possible, according to the Rashbam and Rashi, that at the afikomen you're actually being mekayim the mitzvah of matzah, and since we have to be machmer because we're not sure, maybe the halacha is like Reb Loza ben Azariah, that the mitzvahs of the night have to be done by midnight, one should be careful to eat the afikomen, which might be the mitzvah of matzah, before midnight. Now you pour the third kos for Birkat HaMazon, and I'm not sure people are having private zdarim at home. I don't know how many people you have at the Seder, but if you're fortunate that you have 3 adults and you can do Birkat HaMazon bezimun, the Balabayit is the one who leads zimun at the Seder, because usually the Oreach leads the zimun, so he can give a bracha to the Balabayis. But here, because the Balabayit announced, Kol dichvin yesev v'yechel, he's offering whoever needs to come and eat. So he's a tov ayin, he's a generous person who offered an invitation for people to come and eat. So there's a pasuk in Mishlei, tov ayin hu yivorach. The one who has a good eye is the one who should do Birkat HaMazon. By the way, the same way that mitzvah matzah is a mitzvah daraisa, and Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is a mitzvah daraisa, Birkat HaMazon is also a mitzvah d'oraita. After Birkat HaMazon, you drink the third kos, and you make a Bora Priyagofen, even Sfardim will make a Bora Priyagofen on the third kos because you just finished benching. And then the minig is to pour the fourth kos and open the door. You open the door for Shvach HaMotcha. Shvach HaMotcha means pour out, we say to God, pour out your anger at the nations who do not know you and the kingdoms that did not call out in your name, because they have destroyed, they've consumed Yaakov, they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. We say to Hashem to pour out His anger at those who have harmed us and those who have oppressed us. Some have said the reason why you open the door is to make sure that there's nobody listening when we say these harsh words against those who have harmed us. Also, we open the door to show that tonight is a night of security, tonight is a night of safety, we're safe to open the door. Some say we open the door to allow, so to speak, Eliyahu Hanavi to come. Because since we're about to say the Hallel about the Geula, the redemption to come, and before the Geula, the redemption to come, Eliyahu comes, so therefore we open the door for Eliyahu, and some pour now in advance the Kos Shel Eliyahu. We say the completion of the Hallel, because the completion of the Hallel is a praise for the Geula to come, whereas the first two paragraphs of Hallel, Hallelu Avdei Hashem and B'tzeis Yisrael Mitzrayim, were the paragraphs of the Geula of Mitzrayim. In the end of Hallel, we make a bracha, we say Nishmas Kol Chai, we make a bracha, and then we drink the fourth kos, which, because we said Hallel on that fourth kos, and Sfardim do not make a bracha on the fourth kos, because they made one on the third, and they did not stop concentrating on the wine. Ashkenazim feel that since each one is a separate mitzvah derabanan, they make a separate bar priyagofen. And at the end of that, by the way, as far as shiurim are concerned, volumes of drinking, if you drink a majority of your kos and you use a small kos, so then you're yaitze kaisais. But for the fourth kais, you should drink a revius. A revius for the raisa could be about 4 ounces. Again, ask your rabbanim exactly for the amount. But because since you're going to make a brocha ala gefen val priya gefen, a brocha achrona at the end of drinking is only if you've had a shear. And then the last thing is nirtza. If you have done the Seder properly, then God bless you. May Hashem help. We should be able to do another Seder, but this time in Jerusalem with a Korban Pesach. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim got its name from 2 places. Avram Avinu called it Yireh. At the Haggada, it says Hashem Yireh. Hashem was seen at this place and will be seen at this place. Shem ben Noach called it Sholem. Sholem, Shin Lamed Mem. It says the Malki Tzedek, Melech Sholem. Malki Tzedek was the righteous king who was Shem ben Noach, called it Sholem. So God said, since Avram called it Yireh, Yud Resh Ayin Hey, and Shem called it Sholem, I'm going to combine it. And the Aleph and the Hey is 1 and 5 is 6, so it's called Yerushalem. So in Tanakh, it's usually called Yerushalem without the Yud. In some places there's a Yud. Some have said because Yerushalayim is blessed with 10 different qualities that the Gemara and Kedushin lists, so we add the name Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a city of unity. It's a city that the name that Avram gave and the name that Shem gave were unified together to make that name. Yerushalayim was a city that all the Jewish people were unified when they came there for Yontif. Yerushalayim is a city which is down here on earth, unified with the Yerushalayim Shalmala, Ki'ir Shechubra Layachtav, the city that it is attached to and combined to above. Yerushalayim is a language of plurality, not Yerushalayim, like Mayim, Yadayim, Shamayim, it's plurality, because there are 2 Yerushalayim, the one down here and the one on earth. And God should help, we should be Zaycha, L'shan haba b'Yerushalayim. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you the Haggada, yes? You know the story. There are many interpretations. I'll give you just one. In fact, I'll give you 2 divrei Torah. At the end, we also say, Echad miyadeh, Shnai miyadeh, Shloisha miyadeh. What's that all about? It's a mashal to a family gathering where all the uncles and the cousins and everybody's all together, like sometimes it would be at other Yom Tovim of Pesach. At the end, the father takes out from the safe the family jewels, and he says, "You should know these jewelry. This belongs to our family." So at the end of the seder, we say, "This is our jewelry. Echad is Alekeinu b'Shamayim v'Oretz. Shtaim is the luchos. 3 is our avos. 4 are the imois. 5 is chumshei Torah. 6 is Shisha Sidra Mishnah. This is our jewelry. We show the jewelry to the family at the end of the family celebration." The Haggada. I'll make it quick. Hold on tight. The 2 goats represent the 2 goats that Yaakov Avinu brought to Yitzchak in order to get the blessings. 2 goats. Now, Because he got the blessings, he passed it on to his children, but the children had jealousy, which is the cat. The cat is a symbol of jealousy, and the jealousy that the brothers had caused it that Yosef was sold to Egypt, and we ended up in Egypt. In Egypt came the dog, Paro. Paro was the dog who bit the Jewish people and harmed them, but after the dog comes the stick of Moshe that hit the dog. The stick of Moshe took the Jews out of Egypt, took them through the desert until the Beis HaMikdash was built. But the Beis HaMikdash was burnt by the fire of Nebuchadnezzar, so the fire destroyed the stick. The fire of Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and we were in exile for 70 years. Beginning of the second temple came the Anshe Knesset Agdola compared to water. Water is Torah, and they had Torah and built the second Beis HaMikdash. But the ox is the symbol of Edom, Rome, that destroyed the second Beis HaMikdash. But then comes the slaughterer, the Shochet, who's Mashiach ben Yosef, who slaughters and defeats Edom. But the Malach HaMoves kills Mashiach ben Yosef. But then HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes with Mashiach ben David and destroys the Malach HaMoves, because there will be no more death, and Tchias HaMesim will come, and the Geula will come. I wish you all a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I hope to see you very well soon again when this problem is over. Chag Kosher v'Sameach.